at least not damaging, if not improving the environmental aspects in the globe, which again, it transcends. If India emits too much carbon, then it is not bound within the national territory of India, for example. It transcends. It affects the neighboring country. It's everywhere. So we'll hear four very interesting papers. One is how tax policy affects the domestic carbon use, I believe. The illustration is from India. It will be presented by Ruptimava Bose from the NCAER. NCAER is one of the pioneer research organization conducting applied research in India, based in New Delhi. And the second paper is on a comparison across three types of irrigation system: solar irrigation, the diesel-driven motor, and electricity-driven motor irrigation. And the authors collected data from farmers during Amon and Boro season and compare with and without implicit and explicit subsidy how these three modes of irrigation is beneficial to the farmer. I don't know, I'll hear if they take the social benefit cost analysis, because even if the cost of irrigation with solar electricity is expensive, it has huge environmental benefit because it doesn't emit carbon dioxide to our atmosphere. The third one is on the waste management, because look, now as per the latest population census, about 28% of our population live in the urban area, and solid waste management, forget about the hazardous waste, that take the medical institutions are somehow taken care of perfectly or imperfectly. The solid waste management is a problem. Although this is a clear mandate to our municipalities about the waste management, but as urban residents, we all experience every now and then the filthy road, noxious smells. So what kind of mechanism that should be in place? They experimented how much the residents are willing to pay for waste management. And the fourth one is it is a model. I did not have time to go through it. It's the carbon emission under dynamic macroeconomic framework. We'll listen. So without further ado, let me invite the first presenter. Before that, there's a rule of game. Each of the presenter, you will have 10 minutes. And they are first to present your case. So altogether 40 minutes you'll make present. And so there will be no question. And audience, please write up your question specifically targeted for the presenter. After that, Saqib bin Amin, Associate Professor of Economics from North-South University, will make his own remarks on each of these papers, and he will be allotted about 15 minutes. And after that, and the audience, you collectively will have 10 minutes to, each of you will 1 minute take it to just directly asking the question on this. And after that, the presenter, each of the presenter will have 2 minutes to respond to your queries, if there is any. And at the end, I'll wrap up the session. So this is the rule of the game. Okay. Thank you very much. Without further ado, to uh, Dr. Bose or Mr. Bose?
Mr. Bush.
Mr. Bose. Okay. Very warm welcome from all the way from Delhi to here in Dhaka. So over to you. Anything for each of the two. Floor is yours.
So this is the import of CBAM products. You can see that India, the largest India sector which is exported to the EU is iron and steel. Cement have a very low percentage, followed by aluminium and fertilizer. Fertilizer is very low. This is all over the world. There is a carbon tax imposed on many sectors. That is a home carbon tax. Like India does not have a carbon tax at the moment. Neither any of the South Asian countries have, neither Bangladesh nor Pakistan. But many of the countries already have a carbon tax in their home countries. EU is the highest. EU have almost 87. per ton, followed by Canada, which is around 40, followed by UK, which is around 25, Korea is around 20, South Africa is around 15, China is around 12 or 13, and Japan is 3. Ukraine have at the moment have the lowest carbon tax of 3. India at the moment is planning to impose the carbon tax, but that is not imposed at this moment. So this is the emission intensity of the EU's trading partner. I will just look into India. India, I can see that the emission intensity for cement is quite high. Tunisia have the highest intensity, followed by Vietnam. Then coming Turkey and Ukraine, and fifth is India. India have a high intensity for cement sector. But as I shown you in the earlier sector, cement is a very small percentage that is going to EU. This is the in CG modeling, there is a kind of a shock we have to give to get the result. So the shock that we have calculated, the data has been taken from the World Bank carbon pricing dashboard. In World Bank carbon pricing dashboard, there is a data for all the sector which might have a high carbon intensive. So that I have taken the data from the World Bank carbon tax and I have multiplied it with the quantity of export, the amount of quantity that have been exported to the EU across not only India. I have seen you the region that I have compiled. I have calculated all the countries. So the total amount of carbon embodied, suppose for cement, this is I have in C equal to C into 1. And there is one thing I missed here, like those countries who already have a carbon tax, CBAM, the basically thing is they will minus the carbon tax already there in the home countries. We have a carbon tax $40 per ton, and EU at the moment have 86.6. So they will subtract the 86.6 minus 40. That is how that will be imposed on the country they are importing. Now, this is the result, impact on export sale. India, I'm particularly trying to tell, I don't have the time to explain. India, the largest heat sector will be cement. This is because, as I have shown you, cement have the very high carbon intensive sector for India. Although cement have a very low, India is exporting a very low quantity to the EU, but their carbon intensive is one of the highest among the exporting partner. So India, the sector which will be massively hit is the cement. That is around, I think the fall will be not very much. It will be around 7 to 8%, followed by fertilizer, iron and ore, and aluminium. Aluminium will not have much effect. This is the impact on emission. Emission, India will have a very, very low, like almost 0.002%. Every country, most of the country have a fall on emission due to the carbon tax, but the fall is very, very low, like it's not even 0.014%. The Egypt have the highest, have the lowest emission intensity when it is coming for the fall. This is the impact on welfare. Welfare is basically calculated in as a relative price change in CGE modeling. Welfare, so India have a 0.5%. So it's a very low also again coming. So CBAM does not have huge impact on India, also on other countries, except some country on Egypt or Ukraine. Egypt have a very, as I shown you in cement and all the aluminium sector, they have a huge carbon intensive product. So they might have a huge impact there. And I have also shown the rural and urban inequality. I can show you that without CBAM, there is a slight fall in the rural inequality. This might be the effect because the coal-intensive sector of India is coming from the eastern side, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, which are very poor state. So that might be the effect that the lower quantile of the society, they might lose the income in the long run. Urban inequality does not have any effect. Without CBAM and with CBAM, they remains the same. So the policy implication is that the developing country, that all the countries are wanted, they have to impose their home carbon tax so that the money remain in their home country. Otherwise, EU will take that money. Because if the carbon tax imposed in India or any the developing countries, the money will be stay in their home country. That is the policy, and CBAM actually violating many of the rules of the WTO. WTO have their most favored nation policy, and also many subsidy that has been given to the developing country. That is also CBAM is violating the rule. So, and another is assistance for developing country to adopt the green technology, strengthening of domestic carbon pricing mechanism for all the developing countries so that the money stay in home country. With the imposition of CBAM, the impact of EU's trading partner is primarily governed by three factors: the volume export before the imposition of CBAM, the carbon pricing mechanism in each partner country, and the level of emission embodied in the CBAM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bose. It was a nice presentation on how Indian economy will be affected because of EU's imposition of this tax. We'll take your comments from the floor now. The second presentation is by K. Shahana Ganam. She will take a present on the comparative assessment of profitability and benefits of irrigation by three different modes, like solar irrigation, diesel-driven irrigation, and electricity-driven irrigation. Up to you. Yes, go. The floor is yours.
Irrigation is the lifeline of our agriculture. Without it, the land would be dry up and rice production will be at risk. But the way we irrigate our land is very costly, not only for the farmer, but also for the government. Right now, the rice production of Bangladesh heavily relies on three types of irrigation. These are electric powered, solar powered, and diesel powered irrigation. Diesel powered irrigation is very expensive, with fuel price around 105 taka per liter, which makes it financial burden for the farmer. Electric irrigation is cheaper than the diesel, but it is highly subsidized. Subsidy makes a short-term benefit for the farmer, but it creates a long-term financial burden on public resources. However, solar irrigation is the most promising solutions. Now, once installed, it creates fuel cost as well as the environmental impact. But the high initial cost of setup and the lack of technical knowledge make it difficult to make the solar irrigation difficult to adopt. So a question arises: can solar irrigation is the affordable option for the farmer, and what policy measure can make it more accessible? To answer these questions, I have conducted a research on topic reducing energy use cost through solar-powered irrigation systems in Bangladesh, a pathway towards economic sustainability, with the collaboration of my co-author, Professor Dr. Nahid Sattar, Suraya Yasmin, and Istat Jerin. Our study focused on analyzing the profitability of rice production among solar, diesel, and electric irrigation methods, investigate the subsidy-adjusted cost and its impacts on different irrigation systems, identify the key barriers, and propose some policy recommendation to scale up solar irrigation. To fulfill our objectives, we have conducted a survey in 2024 among 159 rice farmers who use solar, diesel, and electric irrigation. We select our sample by stratified random sampling technique. In our research, the analytical technique includes cost-benefit analysis, subsidy-adjusted cost analysis, and farmers' feedback on challenges and possible solutions. Our study area was Bhaluka, Muktagacha, and Jamalpur Sodor under Moymonsingh and Jamalpur district. Here we have categorized the sample size based on irrigation types. Here we can see that among 159 rice farmers, 78 from Amon and 81 from Boro season. In Amon season, we have interviewed 19 solar farmers, and in Boro, we have interviewed 36 solar farmers who are under BADC solar irrigation scheme. In this slide, we will discuss about the profitability of rice production under different irrigation systems. We know rice production depends on multiple cost components, but due to time bound, we will discuss only about the irrigation cost. Here we can see that solar irrigation incurs the lowest cost among all the irrigation type. Here, in Amon season, the cost for solar is 7,847 taka, and in Boro, 9,346 taka. For electric, it is 14,474, and in Boro season, 22,798, which is 2 times higher than the solar irrigation. But diesel incurs the highest cost. For Amon season, the cost for diesel is 15,506, and for Boro season, the cost for diesel is 40,170, which is almost 4 times higher than the solar irrigation in Boro season. In benefit cost ratio, we can see that solar irrigation incurs the highest, which indicates the cost effectiveness of solar irrigation. Here we shown the subsidy that are given by the government to the farmer. For diesel, the percentage of subsidy is 31.5%. For electric, it is 52.55%, and for solar, it is 70 to 80% of setup cost. In this slide, we have compared the financial and subsidy-adjusted cost of irrigation. We can see that the cost difference between financial and subsidy-adjusted cost for irrigation is 83%, for electric it is 52%, and for diesel it is 46%. So we can say that without subsidy, solar irrigation would be the most expensive option. And electric and diesel is also highly subsidized. When we collected our data, we asked farmers about the challenges they face regarding the adoption of solar-powered irrigation systems. Almost 85% farmers reported that the high initial cost of installing the solar panel as the major challenge. They also reported lack of technical knowledge, limited land availability, low capacity of solar pumps, unavailability of spare parts, seasonal sunlight variability, downfall the adoption of solar-powered irrigation system. They not only tell us the challenges, they also suggested some solutions to advance the solar-powered irrigation systems. These are financial support by the government and non-government organizations, technical trainings, awareness campaign, public sector investment, policies to support and standardize solar irrigation, and development of local supply chain. Now the most important part comes in, the policy recommendation part. When we collected our data, we see that the farmers who are under BADC schemes has a pump manager. And the solar panel is on his field. Definitely he is a large farmer, but he only have to pay 1,100 taka to BADC as a rent. But the farmer who takes water from him have to pay more, and the extra money goes on her pocket instead of government fund. Already we have seen that the solar irrigation is highly subsidized and the return from it is negative. So government feel less interest to set up new plants, though it is cost effective. By keeping this on our mind, we have suggested three possible policy recommendations. These are differential subsidy based on farm size. That means small farmer will get the highest subsidy and the large farmer will get lower. Farmers contributed solar irrigation funds for maintenance so that they can cover the repair and maintenance cost without the constant support of the government. And finally, the solar irrigation loan schemes. In conclusions, we can say that solar irrigation is a cost-effective solution and it can transform our agriculture. The sun is free. So let's make sure the farmer who produces food for us can make the best use of the sun. Thank you all for your patience. If you have any questions, I would like to answer this.
Very interesting. I'll have right after this, not now. I'll have a few questions on this. This is very interesting thing, comparing these three modes of irrigation. Thank you very much. Our next presenter is Mehboob Hussain. This is from rural to urban area, in now shuttling, presenting an interesting paper on the households' willingness to pay for solid waste management in the urban area, a case from Khulna City Corporation. It will be very interesting case. Up to you. You will be presenting willingness to pay based on the contingent valuation method, like how households to what extent they are, what percent are willing and how much they are willing to pay for getting rid of this nuisance, noxious smell and other things, factor and pathogen flying all around your home.
Me?
Yeah.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম এভরিওয়ান, আমি মেহবুব হাসান এবং এই মুহূর্তে আমি শীতে জমে যাচ্ছি।
কেন?
Yes. Okay. I don't think I need mic.
না,
Okay.
হাতে রাখলে হবে।
Okay. The title is Households' Willingness to Pay for Improved Solid Waste Disposal Services. Starting. Okay. Let's first understand the importance. This topic is very important right now for globally and locally because it connects to the circular economy, that means reuse and recycle of the product, and it is very important for the proper utilization of the resource, and also it connects to the sustainability of the environment, and also it connects to the directly the SDGs. And let's understand the importance of this topic for the Khulna City Corporation. About 80% of the people of Khulna City Corporation is not satisfied of current solid waste management system, and they are wanting a better option. This paper will help to understand their demand on the solid waste management and also their contribution they are willing to pay for the sustainability for their city. On the developed content, we have objective, methodology, result, and discussion, also the recommendation.
Just to interrupt, for the sake of time, you better go to your very quickly methodology, then discussion. That will save your time and you can
Okay,
explain
thank you.
a little bit more.
Okay, we have only two specific objective. That is, the first one is to understand the amount that the people are willing to pay, and the second objective is to understand the factors is affecting the willingness to pay. Okay, the variable are presented here, the dependent as well as the independent variables. as well as the unit of measurement and the literature support is presented on the right column. Okay, we have generated 3 improvement scenarios here with attributes. These improvement scenarios are made by literature support as well as the pilot surveying in Khulna City Corporation. I would like to tell the attributes. Households will be provided containers to segregate their waste collecting frequency, cleaning the intermediate dumping station, cleaning the roadside drain of your area, stopping the open dumping in the final dumping station, restrict waste transportation in the during daytime. And the tariffs are presented here. You can see the initial bid are 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000. Okay. For the objective 1, we have used DVDC model, and for the objective 2, we have used logic regression model. Here is the presentation of the DVDC model. That means double bonded dichotomous choice model. In the double bonded, we have 2 bits. The respondent will be has asked their response for the willingness to pay and recorded their response, and the second bit is offered and their second response is offered. By this, we can get their response as yes, 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 no, yes, no, no, yes. And this will find their response as how much they are willing to pay and the percentages of willingness to pay people. Okay. This is the logic regression model. This will fulfill our second objective, which is the factors that influence the willingness to pay amount. And the variables are here: sex, age, educational, schooling year, residential status, household income, distance from intermediate dumping station, duration of living in Khulna City Corporation. Okay, now let's do the result part. We can see that about 79% of people in Khulna City Corporation are willing to pay. That's a huge amount of people that they are willing to pay. And we can see that in the figure 2, occupational wise percentages of people who are willing to pay. We can see that the people who are in the non-government job are willing to pay more. And the people in the day labor is connected to the rural area, connected to the marginal people, they are willing to pay less than the people who are in the more payment sector, I think. And we can see in the figure 3, here is presented households income wise percentages of people who are willing to pay. It shows that the people who have more income, they are more willing to pay, and the people who have less income, they are less interested in paying. Okay, for that time saving, I'm going faster. Educational wise percentages of people willing to pay. Here we can also see that the people who has more educational qualifications, they are more willing to pay. On the figure 5, we can see that residential status wise percentages of people who are willing to pay. Residential status means the people who have rental house and the people who have living their own house. This result find that the people who have their own house, they are more willing to pay than the people who are living in the rental house. Okay, the summary statistics. This represents our respondents and their criteria, and this result actually has similarities with the BSS data of Khulna City Corporation. I would like to skip that because there has no significant changes. Okay, that is the logic regression model. We can see that there has 3 significant results. One is schooling year, second one is residential status, and third one is household income. We can see that according to the study, also the amount that the people are willing to pay, the amount that the Khulna City Corporation people are willing to pay is 315 BDT per month. And we can see that if schooling year increases by 1 class, the willingness to pay increases by 5 BDT per month, which is which is if other thing remain constant. And the second one is if the people are living at their own house instead of living rental house, the willingness to pay is more likely to be 42 BDT per month. And in the case of household income, if household income increases by 1%, in that case, the BDT per month willingness to pay increases by 75 BDT per month. On all of these are maintaining that all other things remain constant. And willingness to pay has also 1% level significance. Okay, let's come to the recommendation part. We have mainly two recommendations. One is for the Khulna City Corporation and one is for the overall. Khulna City Corporation can impose roughly 300 BDT per month. And the overall recommendation is creating job sector to help strengthen economically and promoting education to enhance awareness. And our conclusion is for a sustainable and healthy environment, proper solid waste proper system is very important. Proper solid waste disposal system can reduce health costs, environmental threat, as well as the people of Khulna City Corporation are willing to pay more than right now they are paying. So Khulna City Corporation can impose that amount. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's nice presentation on the percentage of willingness and how much they actually get are willing to pay for solid waste management in the urban area. Our last presenter is Shayar Ahmed Shah, a PhD student from IIT Punjab. He will be presenting on the macro-prudential policy analysis of carbon emission under macrodynamic framework. Welcome. So you have to, yeah. For the second part, please go to your results. Then you have much more time instead of spending it. Yeah. Now that our main discussion is here, do we still have to your bringing this to your Facebook page? Yeah, you're not sharing. Well, then just connect this online sharing. There will be hardly any person online, right? We'll save our time and life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody here. So I'm thankful to the SAEC for giving me opportunity to present my work. So before the audience, I want to give the gist of the presentation or gist of the paper. What I have done is that this work is with my co-authors at Indian Institute of Technology, Roper, and Institute of Economic Growth, New Delhi. So what I have done in the work, this work is already communicated to the publication. So in this work, we try to analyze the impact of carbon emission, because as we know, carbon emission is a vital problem before every nation, whether it is developed or developing economy. How to combat the rising emission, that is with the international organizations as well. They are behind this. What type of policies we need to formulate to combat the emission as efficiently as possible. So this case is also prevalent in India as well. So now we try to examine how we can implement some kind of policy which will be efficient in terms of cost as well as efficient in terms of environmental mitigation. So in that case, I have set up a model for the emerging economy, India. So we tested different scenarios in this model, how it will work for the policymakers. So yeah. So if we go through the international conventions, like we have a Paris Agreement accord for every country to limit the carbon emission to some level, like it is 1.5%, 5 degree. So we have some deadline as in 2024 Conference of Parties at the Bukhara in Azerbaijan have also decided that emerging economies are facing a lot of problems in terms of finance, how to deal with these type of to combat the emissions. So in that case, that deal has also failed recently. In this case, we need some restructuring. Instead of focusing mostly on the finance, we can have some restructuring, internal restructuring in the domestic economy in terms of policies, like how we can have different kinds of monetary policies. We can have different kinds of fiscal policies in that case. So our paper is trying to examine these policies in vis-a-vis different environmental policies as well. Like we have different environmental policies in terms of whether we should impose the tax on emissions, or whether we should put a cap on the emissions, how much emissions a firm is allowed to, or whether we should give some intensity target that you have to meet this target before some deadline, otherwise you will be penalized. So I will be taking these scenarios in and the policies in the context. I will be integrating these two things. So existing literature has done different variants, like sometimes that policies can affect the emission mitigation, sometimes the policies cannot affect the emission mitigation. So there can be different causal effects in this case. So we have a lot of literature is evolving right now. So this area is also evolving, we can say. So some have examined the positive effects of or significant effects of the emission, some have examined the insignificant effects of the policies. So from the policies, I have critically analyzed the literature. I found that although literature has observed the policy effect on the emission, but they have not integrated the environmental aspects and the policies simultaneously. So in this case, we have integrated the environmental aspects and the policies simultaneously to examine the efficient effects. So coming to the contribution. So what we have done is we have tried to examine the econometric linkage. First, when there is increase in the GDP, how it is affecting the carbon emission, whether there is inelastic relationship or elastic relationship between the two. Second, we have integrated as I said, the policies and the environmental policies simultaneously. Third, we have tried to restructure the policy in terms of if there is a policy, whether in which scenario this policy will work. If we will change some of the, we can say, parameters of the policy, how it will respond to the emission control. So we have our case is for the India because of the several reasons. So because India has to meet certain targets by 2030, it has to reduce the carbon emission by 50% by 2030, and it has to come by 2070, it has to come to the zero emission level. So whether the India is able to realize this, so we have tried to give it a policy perspective. So if we see the scenario of India GDP and the carbon emission, we see that sometimes carbon emission is overpowering the, we can say, GDP. So there is a relationship between this carbon emission and GDP is like sometimes GDP is above the carbon emission, sometimes GDP is trend of the GDP is below the carbon emission. So if we see the trend has changed in 2016. So in 2016, India has adopted the inflation targeting framework in terms of monetary policy. So we try to examine whether the imposition of inflation targeting can have effect on the carbon emission in this case. So coming to the model, we have a dynamic general equilibrium model. So where in the model we have different sectors in terms of a household, which is a representative household constituting the continuum of households, and we have a firm sector where we have an output which is produced by some intermediate inputs. So that intermediate input and output is also the representative firm, we can say, and we have a environmental sector where we have tried to examine, we have tried to structure it as that output is a function of emission is a function of output. So whenever there is increase in the output, it can contribute to the emission in that case. And we have given certain shocks to the every sector. So coming to the empirical approach, we have used data for GDP and carbon emission from different databases like WDI and International Energy Agency. So we follow different approaches. First, we do the econometric approach to examine the regression relationship. Then we simulate the model after estimating the parameters. Then we follow the Bayesian econometric approach to deal with the probability part. So from the regression, I found there is inelastic relationship between GDP and emission. If there is rise in emission, if there is rise in GDP, it inelastically contributes to the rise in emissions. This finding of our is inconsistent with some of the papers which are in Yog presently. So this is the output and descriptive statistics. Now we move to the simulation. So our simulation is based on some calibration. So first we calibrated the model parameters, and based on that calibration, we simulated the model. So we simulated model based on different scenarios. So we took three shocks into consideration. One is the productivity shock. So one is the fiscal policy shock, and we have a monetary policy shock. So productivity shock, we found that it contributes to the rise in the emission, it contributes to the rise in GDP and other macroeconomic variables which are in the model. And fiscal policy, we observed that it contributes to the reduction in the emission with a rise in the output. And for the monetary policy, we also found that it contributes to the rise in the fall in the emission and with some contribution or rise in the output. Overall, we found from the impulse responses that among the four policies, cap and trade policy plays an important role in emission mitigation related to the other policies. So this is the calibration of the parameters, what we have done. And this is the steady state, what we have done. And then I will directly move to the Bayesian analysis. So these are the impulse responses. Now we followed the Bayesian approach. First, we give the priori to the parameter to estimate the posteriori thing. So because we have to give priori is based on the Bayesian theorem. So whenever we give the prioris, we calculate to the posteriori. So what we found from the posteriori or Bayesian estimation, we found that our estimators fall within the confidence interval, and most of the estimators contribute for the cap and trade policy. Those are higher as compared to other policies. So then we did the inflation targeting. So we restructured the monetary policy in terms of inflation targeting. So we set the parameter for the Taylor rule, which we have in the model, that we set at 1. So that we try to set it like monetary policy implicitly focuses on the inflation, not for the output. So what we found from the overall inflation targeting is that it simultaneously cares for the inflation and output and contributes to the reduction in the emission. So this is the priori specification and posteriori estimation, and these are the priori and posteriori. So this is inflation targeting under the inflation targeting framework. So then we resort our analysis to some robustness checks. We did two types of robustness checks. One is whether our simulation momentous match over the data which we have in the real, and whether our IRF impulse responses match with the data. So in the moment comparison analysis, we found that we did three types of things. One is the autocorrelation, standard deviation, and the correlation analysis. So we found that our estimators are to somehow consistent with the simulated part. So we can say that our diagnostics are robust in this case. Second, what we did impulse response matching. So what we found that our impulse responses are following the consistency, bearing some we can say differences. So key takeaways from this analysis is that cap and trade policy plays a significant role, and we have and under the environmental policy, we found that it contributes to the reduction in welfare, but it also contributes to the reduction in the emission. So we should go for the environmental policy, but for a specific environmental policy in that case. And also we found that inflation targeting combined with the cap and trade policy is a optimal policy mix which the policymakers can focus on. So we can derive some policy outcomes from this, as I have discussed that the cap and trade policy in an inflation targeting framework is efficient, and that policy can also provide the viable solution for green inflation, because what we have observed that in the present scenario or in the present literature, when we are implementing a policy, it can contribute to the inflation as well. So what I have observed is that when it is a kind of inflation targeting, it can control the inflation as well. So it can control the green inflation problem with the policymakers as well, because when we transition towards the green, it can also contribute to the inflation as well. So if it is a kind of inflation targeting, then it can minimize the green inflation part. So there are certain warrants in the findings, like we cannot completely rely on the inflation targeting, but we have to find the optimal inflation targeting. So we have to focus on what is the policy discourse in that case. Second, uh, to set the cap or we can say trade rates, because when we are going to the cap and trade policy to determine the rate of a permit which is there, so that is also a challenge before the policy. So they have to we can say carefully fix the rate of that, otherwise market there can be disruptions in the cap and permit market, which carbon trading is going on. So for the future Sukup, we know that the relationship between monetary policy and environmental policy can be nuanced in some times because of business cycle fluctuations. So in that case, there can be lag effect. Monetary policy can affect the output variables in the environmental case, but over a period of time. So while formulating the policies, so future research can look into this. So at what period of time a policy intervention is efficient? I think this is from my side.
Thank you very much. So we have picked four presentation and we are all thankful to the presenter to make it, try to make it in time. Before presentation, let me recap one on how a typical economy, the case of India, uh, uh, is affected or will be affected through this domestic carbon policy imposed by the European Union based on its export of cement. The second paper is a comparative analysis of the three modes of irrigation, solar, diesel-driven, and electricity-driven. The third one is on the urban residents sectors willing participation to case take the waste management and take their mean amount of payment for that to availing their service. The fourth one is the the combination of policy, inflation targeting, and other policies to achieve to summarize this one, to achieve this environmental coordinate system with green growth and other this one. So with this, let me now invite Professor Saqib Amin, who has extensive work on these energy related issues to reflect on each of these paper, and you have 15 minutes in total altogether for all these four papers to reflect you on. Yeah, you sit on there, then the floor will be open and for another 10 minutes, then I'll recap. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity and for the introduction. So, I apologize for being a bit late due to the traffic. So, it's very difficult the task of the discussion is very difficult because our aim is to, critically comment on the paper so that it can be further enriched and right for publication. So, based on the, provided paper, I would write down some written comments so that I can share with you and you can incorporate the comment before actually developing the paper for the journal publication. And this is one of the main objective of any academic conferences. So I start from the last paper, which is the DSG model. So I'd like to welcome to our guest from India, Bangladesh, and good morning to all of you. So actually my PhD was in DSG model, dynamic service geometry model, energy augmented. So when I reviewed your paper, I found that there is a huge overlapping with Valerio Nispelandi, a senior economist at Italy. So I have a feeling that sort of it's a replication of that particular model. And these are also given in the website. So, and you're talking about the calibration. So what I can see that you actually borrowed parameter values from the existing Indian papers. For example, Paranta Basu, Srisati Banerjee, Chetan Ghate.
Yes.
So calibration actually has three different parts. So when you go for calibration of DSG model, so option one, you can actually borrow from the existing paper, which you have done rightly. Second, actually, you estimate the calibration, and sometimes you can also find the value of the parameter from the existing steady state scenario or the different ratio of the variables. But I would strongly recommend you to go through the Valerio Mispel and the paper. He has a dedicated website, and there's a huge similarity from your work and his existing
Yes.
materials, even with the four scenarios. So if it actually go in this form, I have a strong feeling you it will get a best prediction.
Okay.
Because have you ever seen the paper from the Miss Pilendi?
Yeah, I went through that.
So did you borrow the model from them?
Actually, we had the ours is the
Because there is
over
95%
over is the
actually.
it is similar, but over is the emerging economy case.
Then-
They have
No, but what is your main contribution in that case?
we have looked at the inflation targeting. They have not looked at the inflation targeting.
Okay. But
Yes.
I think you perhaps
They have
actually
taken the four scenarios, but
yes. I think you can add some more scenarios, and you also try to estimate rather than fully borrowing the papers from the calibration from the existing papers.
yes,
You can try to calibrate by your own.
yes,
Otherwise, don't find it very difficult. I would not like to become very harsh, but it's
yes,
to
yes,
make the paper more actually enriched
yes,
and increase the possibility of publication. I need to make these comments because I experienced in the past actually if the model goes in this way, there are lots of actually DSG modeler. It's a very typical Newcastle.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, and take to respond. Take care.
Okay. So
Yeah,
please
I got your point.
revise the model. Try to make your own contribution.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And regarding the model reducing energy use cost through solar power irrigation system Bangladesh. So this paper evaluates the economic feasibility of solar power irrigation system as a sustainable alternative to conventional diesel and electric irrigation model. It's a good topic and relevant for Bangladesh energy transition, what we are looking after. So we have identified a research gap from a significantly broader perspective. So I think in light of the previous literature, we have many literatures. So perhaps focus on elaborating why a particular mechanism, especially subsidies, might help the farmers. So you further highlighting this actually particular aspect. And we have also mentioned that there is evidence of numerous studies on the impact of SPIS. The paper demands a separate literature review section. So I read from your existing paper. So I did not find any separate literature review. So since there are lots of papers over there, so you may consider adding a separate literature review section, discussing the key findings with those found on those papers coupled with the policy initiatives taken by the government and the other related entities. Moving on, the methodology should be written in a more professional manner. I try to go through some of the actually academic papers published in the reputed journal and enrich the methodological section. You might consider strengthening the intuitive analysis of the financial cost and profitability analysis section. It is in the right direction, but needs actually more rigor in the analysis of your argument. And then, unlike diesel and electric irrigation, the subsidy amount is not explicitly mentioned for solar irrigation. Okay, you may actually expand this particular aspect. And generally, when we write the academic journal, we try to avoid the citation from the newspaper articles. We try to cite actually a journal publication. So I can see there are lots of newspaper citation in your articles. I believe you can find some alternative journal publications. So try to incorporate the more recent published literature. And so rather than citing newspapers, you can cite the actual source of information or data, because sometimes newspaper, citation is not that much authentic. You may cite a newspaper, but there is always a question regarding the validity or authenticity of the data. So you can directly cite the sources or any paper. And yes, you can read the newspaper to gather information, but once again, if you include more journal articles, that will be further enriching the paper. And final comments, some of the policy suggestions are really very good, but they need solid econometric empirical evidence other than what is present in the paper. Any policy advisors actually needs to be backed up by econometric analysis. Otherwise, there is always a question by the reviewer, like, what is the contribution, how you can actually check the robustness of your findings, how you can validate. So try to do some empirical analysis. For example, I can give you a quick suggestion. Adjusting subsidies and increasing the cost of solar irrigation for farmers with large land access would have to be checked by empirical estimations before reaching the conclusion. So I can see the conclusion is not backed up by empirical analysis. So if you do so, it can be a very good paper and it will publish. Thank you very much. And then coming to the paper of the household willingness to pay for improved solid waste disposal services, as Yunus has said, it's a very good paper, actually, very good paper. But I believe, this is paper.
Yes.
And the format you used in sharing with Sarin, it's like, in a thesis format. So the first comment actually, you revise the paper following the journal articles, and then you update manuscript by following a standard journal article format before you think about the publication. Second thing, the novelty should be clearly stated with the research gap in the introduction. We actually have done some novelty analysis, but that actually in present form it was in the literature review section. But it's very important actually to identify the research gap novelty in the introduction section. Okay, because this is one of the very universal format of the introduction in the academic journal. So you have used the contingent valuation model mechanism for estimating willingness to pay. It's good. However, it would be good if the authors could further expand the discussion on the proposed base. So it was not very clear in the presentation or in the article. So the generally willingness to pay specification shown by equation 1. You have shown equation 1, 2, 3, if I am not wrong. Also, I have seen from the presentation. So the WTP specification shown by equation 1 needs to be revised. For example, should not be there a coefficient for xi. So what is xi? So I can find the coefficient. So there is some sort of description or some further explanation is required. And equation 2, proper subscript should be used in cross-sectional studies with survey data. It's a cross-sectional analysis, isn't it?
Yes.
So you should follow the typical econometrics standard. Equation 3 states that beta 1 is the coefficient of the bid amount. However, I did not find this coefficient in equation 2. It's perhaps actually the bid amount component is missing, if I'm not wrong, in equation 2. And it seems that the main willingness to pay is estimated from the outcome of equation 2. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And is there another model that is used for estimating willingness to pay, or you just take the mean value?
I just take the mean.
Okay, so you clearly mentioned this in the article.
Yes.
Probably I have missed that, or you did not include that part. And the discussion after equation 3 becomes very, very repetitive. You keep telling the same as to this. So, perhaps you can consider reversing the discussion on double bounded dichotomous choice and bridging it with the econometric method. And I can also see any distribution analysis of the dichotomous responses from various scenarios as normally reported or evident in the existing literature. So if this is not shown, it becomes difficult to get the idea about the optimal scenario. So you try to do so to enrich the paper. In other words, such an analysis would lead to determine the maximum being tariff for econometric estimations. So you are talking about the value of WTP coefficient. Is it a coefficient or just to take the value from the equation 2?
I just take the value of the.
So it's not a coefficient, am I right?
Yes.
Yes, so try to update the paper because you have mentioned it's a coefficient at the last row of your table, but it's actually value that you have obtained from equation 2. And you have also used a logistic model. And how can you actually interpret the coefficient with the BDT per month instead of notion of likelihood or propensity? You need to clarify these sort of things. And you need to develop the policy advices, like, in line with the academic standard. And otherwise, it's a very good work. Congratulations. Moving back to the first paper, actually, I was not present, but I tried to be connected online. So the methodologically, it's a sound model. We have used GTAP model and GTAP E, and you are talking about the carbon emissions and the rural urban disparity. These are all actually very time realistic. Objective. We thought about 4 countries with 6 actually regions, and mainly we're focusing on the cement sector. So I have one particular comment, like, so perhaps you can actually think about the, like, pricing reform as well, as because I have a paper on the decarbonization policy, so where it was evident that actually only the carbon tax will not actually give us the optimal scenario. So if you go for different experiments, maybe you start with the benchmark model with the carbon tax, then actually you can, like, go for some pricing reforms, like, fuel diversification. In that case, you can get the most optimal scenario, and that will further increase your overall actually validity of the model. It can also give some sort of robustness checks. Otherwise, it's a good paper. So thank you very much, for all the presenters. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sheikh Amin, to nicely summarizing, giving them advice. These are our future, Sheikh. Many of them belong to, what do you call, Gen Z generation, the Z, and they will make our future safe. The mother nature, the planet, we have only one. Unless there is Elon Musk craft which will take you to a different planet for you to live longer. Okay, having said that, now the floor is open. Please, you ask question, targeted question, no introduction. Just introduce yourself and ask the question. We'll record and we'll pass on to the respective presenter. We have 10 minutes allocated. Okay, what to him?
Hello, I'm Sushil Mahaka from University of Calcutta. So my question to Rokinda is, sir, how do you justify the theory of relative price as a measurement of welfare, right? And how can you relate the pollution haven hypothesis in your case, right? Pollution haven hypothesis, right? Because you were working on this aspect, right? Because it will affect the returns to capital. And to Sahana, my question is that how you have decided to take 159 as a size of your sample, right? Because you are using stratified random sampling, right? So, means, are you using the Cochrane formula or something else that you have decided 159 as a number of sample size, right? And because you are using stratified random sampling, so in random sampling, we take first we give force to the sample, then we take it from a random number, right? So, have you generated the random number table? That is my question. And to Mahbub, my question is that because you are talking about something which is called public good, right, in the literature of public economics. So in that case, even if means I doubt that people will reveal their actual willingness to pay because there is a problem of free riding in case of public good, right? So you can look into Samuelson's optimal public good allocation problem and market failure. Right? And finally to Sayer, so initially you presented one mathematical model, right? The dynamic macroeconomic equilibrium model. But you have not mentioned the dynamic stability of the model in terms of saddle path, right? That whatever the saddle path equilibrium, right?
Sorry, whatever?
The
Saddle path equilibrium.
Okay.
Because you have a dynamic model, so then means you need to mention the stability of equilibrium.
Yes.
Right? And whatever the eigenvalues, because eigenvalues actually will determine the stability of the model.
Yes.
So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Shit?
Yeah. I cannot show no about it. You can get this. That's there.
Hello everyone, my name is Tausif. I'm from Institute of Health Economics, University of Dhaka. So my question is to Mehboob.
Hassan?
As this gentleman mentioned, this is a public good, but I disagree because I think this is excludable. I think this is kind of a subscription system.
But please, we'll argue that one, whether public good or not, private good, it depends.
Yes,
ask your question.
Yes, that is my question, that in the practical scenario.
Okay, then I got it. I give you my answer. When it is public, it is both. Both of you are right. When it is public good, when it is private good.
Hello, I'm Professor Naik Satta from Bangladesh Agriculture University. I just had one question, or rather a query to Mr. Raktim Bose. Your paper focuses on India, but in the results you have shown the results on like welfare and also on like emissions, I think, from different countries. So I don't know if it was already there or whether I missed it. Is there a net impact of this, like across the countries, like a global impact of these European policies? Like, did you see any net impact of these?
Okay. Anybody else? No? Yes? Okay. Now, so this, I forgot your name.
Sushobhan Mahadhar.
Sushon?
Sushobhan Mahadhar.
Sushobhan Mahadhar. Oh, thank you very much. He in fact, tied down all four of you by one person. So how do we proceed? Following the order of the presentation, first to the carbon policy, to Raktim Bose. He said
So,
only one question by him.
Yeah.
And the one I'll explain. It depends. Yeah, please.
One question is your how relative price is taken as welfare in CGE model. So there is no clear-cut answer of this. In CGE modeling, actually, there are many software like GAMS, GTAP, GEMPAC. I have used GTAP here. So the variable that we use for welfare analysis is EV, equivalent variation. There is a huge equation for that. I have not included here in the presentation because that doesn't make any sense. Is basically they have included relative price, also GDP, and this is a CGE modeling. This when I give a shock on India, that actually that impact will be distributed in Bangladesh, Pakistan, and all over the country in the world. So what welfare analysis in CG, because CG actually the welfare is the main criteria to answer anything for CG modeling. So what relative price they actually in CG modeling they tell us that if there is a shock on carbon, like carbon tax, what I have done for India and many other countries, I think I've done for 22 countries. So when there is a shock, there is a price change for all the commodities that is happening in all over the world. So the relative price that in India that is changing, that is actually have an effect on GDP and all over. So that is how I will give you the equation of the paper. Then I think you could have a better understanding that it's not only about relative price, but relative price is the main player here, where relative price is impacting many other things like the GDP. And I think there are, if I'm not from 22 or 23, variable. So maybe I'm not very clear about it, but I just wanted to tell you that relative price is not the only thing. Relative price will impact many other things, and that will actually take care of the welfare of any countries. So I'm sorry if I am not very much clear on that, but in CG modeling, it's very difficult to answer something in a one line or one sentence. I have to show it the equation, then it might be more sound than that.
Next, check. Yeah, it's on your sample size. Check. You mentioned it is a stratified random sampling.
Thank you for your questions. In stratified random sampling technique, we divide our population based on different characteristics. So here I have divided my populations based on irrigation type, and from my selected study area, I divide the population and then I interviewed them randomly.
Okay, I will answer. These are check. these are not exactly, they do not follow exactly the same kind of Cochrane method. You say what is the minimum sample size that is required and how to draw it, unit listing, sampling frame, all those things. These are students, they have not done that. These are kind of at experimental stage to see something, to explore something further.
Actually,
that-
sir has given
but-
your answer very correct.
But,
Just go through what sir has said.
but on academic journals, they try to put each and every word, they will hit you just on the head. You just choose your word. Okay, then the next one is so the solid waste management in Khulna.
Thank you for your question. Like we know that measuring the willingness to pay for environmental goods, we typically use that CDM method, other valuation method like hedonic price effect, travel cost. I just pick one of them, and it is a well recognized method that is going to use, and I have just followed that method. And being some limitation, it is the best method that is that is used overall, and I just followed that. And I'm not sure that what are the specific question that you are going to ask.
So how you relate market failure with this calculation of this kind of things?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Market
Okay.
failure and free riding problem.
Okay, I'll
That's what
summarize.
we'll discuss.
We'll discuss. Thank you very much. Then take the last one
Okay.
on your DSE. Yeah, use
So,
that one.
your question was about the steady state and market equilibrium. So we have to first derive the market equilibrium, as SAR is aware of that. So after deriving the market equilibrium, we have to find the steady state through the software like MATLAB. So I cannot show every result here. So
That's the empirical part.
yeah,
I'm asking the mathematical.
no,
part.
analytical part is there. So we have a dedicated appendix for that. So wherein we have derived the market equilibrium for this. So we can have that. So there is no issue. We can't run the model until and unless we have the steady.
So here are the
market equilibrium.
Kleiner model actually. So
once
Kleiner
it is
check
that-
all these things, the eigenvalues are conditions
Yes.
are made, big conditions are made. So after checking all these, Kleiner will give you the result. Otherwise, it's a nightmare for any DSJ model. that
Yeah,
try
we
to-
have to bring the variables to, model variables to the steady state. Only then we can proceed for the shock. Otherwise, we can't go beyond that. So that's there.
Okay. Any more questions?
I think there was a question.
Yeah.
So I think you wanted to ask whether there is you wanted to know whether there is a net impact.
Yeah.
So in one of my slides, I showed you in GTAP modeling, I have disaggregated the region and the sector. This is how GTAP and most of the CGE modeling work. So the last region I have shown you is rest of the world. Now, based on my purpose, I have to create the region and the sector. This is the most difficult part of CGE. Otherwise, anyone can give a shock and anyone can answer it. So the short answer is it's not. I can't see the net impact for that. Like if there is a one country, like India, and I have to take all the country to the rest of the world, then I can see the impact on India and the rest of the world. Here I have taken the region which might have a significant impact on sea level. That's why I have allocated that region. So no, I don't think I can see the net impact, but on the rest of the world, there are in GTAP modeling there is now 121 country data, and I have taken 20 countries. So all 22 countries. So the other 100 countries is included in the rest of the world. Now, if I take only India and the rest of the world, I can see the impact on India and the rest of the world. This is how GTAP or even GAMS or GAMS. I forgot how GAMS. But GTAP actually worked like this. Unfortunately, I don't think, might be I don't know the whole thing, but I think I can see the whole impact.
Any more questions before we summarize? No? Okay. All those four presentations were really nice. Honestly, I enjoyed your. You have just started your professional career. Try to look up on something, and you did quite correctly. But there is a lot of path to travel to traverse, as Professor Amin said. I have a few observations. I know these are say DSG or CG model. These are to me black box. I am a pure applied econometrician. I love that one. I can see when the output is printed, I can see the results. So I'll have very little comments on that. But these are good initiatives. You see, there are Paris Agreement, COP20, K9, all those agreements. And before that, let me remind you, when we talk about an issue that transcends national boundary, like climate change, carbon emissions, so on and so forth, these are global public good, right? I'll come to that when the waste management is both private good and public good. I'll explain both of you are right. But that one, look at if we go back to our international economic order and political order. In 1948, the Bretton Woods Conference gave birth to two children, IMF and World Bank. And the World Bank was basically established to restore the economic stability in the war-torn countries in the Europe. Later, its activities expanded all over the world, and another organization, the United Nations, came into being around that time. But if you know the Emmanuel's unequal exchange or Santos Cardoso's center periphery theory, the North and South countries are at a loggerhead. The South countries are at the mercy of OECD, Northern countries, for any help. The damage they do to the mother nature, to the environment, it's much more what we do today. During their industrialization, look at the carbon emission, they did it and we absorbed. We had all the wild forest, Amazon wild forest, we absorbed carbon, they emitted carbon. Now it is up to us. I don't know where this game will go, will take us to, but it is, these issues need to be discussed, need to be, and the South countries need to find a way to transform their technology. You cannot change your technology overnight. That will be highly carbon intensive to one, which will be really environmental friendly. It takes time. That South countries do not have that much resources to switch to a technology which will be environmental friendly. So I don't know. This thing will go. Whoever wants have power, they will control the global economy and try to direct in their own way. So, and on Shahananam, you see, you need to take a frame, then say, I listed all the farmers in those, and that is your sampling frame. Then take, using Cochrane method, I said, based on this population, I can draw a representative sample. So you use that one sampling formula based on some prior information or on mean or proportion, there are and what percentage of power. It's 80% power. There is just, it's a click on the data R program. You can then you can spread the size probability proportionate to size those problems. This one, but I have one question on you. See, it seems you surveyed the farmers in estimating their cost and benefit of farming, growing crops, right?
Also ask them what problems they
No, I understand, right? My problem is that these farmers, there is a watermark. He has set one solar pump, he is getting take water from his solar irrigated farm. He has a diesel pump. He is getting water from this diesel pump. And I have one electric pump. He is getting water. So first of all, it depends. So you need to estimate the cost to farmer, to all of them. It doesn't matter what is the sunk cost, what is the variable cost of mine. To me, it will depend on only this. This subsidy adjustment is at the owner level. It's not at your level, at the farmer level. I don't understand. You need to clarify that one. Because we are trying to conduct an experiment on solar irrigation. These are two things, two types. One is the owner of the farm. They have their own cost benefit analysis. You are a farmer, you have your own benefit cost analysis. You know nothing. You don't have to care. What is the one-time cost of buying solar panel and inverter technology, all these things, or how much diesel price is because of the Ukraine war, or whether electricity available. This is not your problem. This is our problem. The agreement is that during this borrow season, I need water. It's in India, it's per hour basis, in dipping method, in Bangladesh, per season basis. Okay? So you have to make absolutely clear about that. Then you see per unit of land. I saw your paper. Why is it take that much per unit of land, per acre, per hectare? You did not mention. You need to mention that why it has to differ, because it's the soil compaction, it's loamy, clay, or sandy land. Then you need to control those characteristics, because the water consumption differs across land quality, right? These are the things. Then come up with your analysis, return on investment or benefit cost analysis. I don't know. So this is just a benefit issue. It's benefit cost analysis. Say there are other terms. You agricultural economists use some other thing. That one, and try to do that. On this one, look, there are 2 points on solid waste management. One is from household to the primary collection point, from primary collection point to the landfill station. That part is public good. What he is doing is taking the garbage from my apartment to the primary collection point, right? This is the one. So this part is private, because the noxious smell, perfume that I get at home is the private good. That will transcend my apartment, will also affect you, but that is minimal. So that's why this willingness thing comes up. This is nice thing. One thing is that at the end, after your dissertation, when you try to publish this paper, you need to defend the anchoring bias. In the contingent valuation method, there is anchoring bias. If you put the anchor around 250, then you'll get some result. If you put the anchor around 350, you'll get some other result. Whether it is how much anchoring bias is that you need to think. Another thing is that what we commit and what we pay, there is a difference. That's why WTP results sectors are difficult to get published nowadays. Instead, they ask you to go for a randomized control trial. This one. On this model, another thing is, see, in the ROW general equilibrium model, you have to take one price as numerator, right? To make a unit simplex. Then everything goes on in terms of that. Then you could say how different institutions are affected in the CGE model. Households, governments, all other things, all those rules. And some of the parameters actually in building either it is DSG or a CGE model, building all those parameters on your own, it will take years. So what they do, actual practitioners, they take something all agreed. The practitioners in India agreed that this is my Armington coefficient. We use that. So if you ask for those, all those extraneous estimates that need to be plugged in for you to run the model to get the simulation result, then it will take time. It will take a few PhD though to complete it. Huh? Huh? আমি সময় বেশি আমি নিয়েছি ওকে সো উইথ দ্য I really enjoyed আমি যখন স্টুডেন্ট ছিলাম আমি এসব কিছুই আসলে জানতাম না I appreciate you new generation with the availability of new technology বাট যে কিছু বলার সেটা আপনারা বলবেন যে ফোকাস ওয়েতে কুইবলিং করা প্যাডিং করা I know this I think that সেটা কোনো কেউ জানে না This is my question, this is the way, this is the data, this is the result I got. Take it or leave it. That's it. Thank you. Will be key. Oh. আচ্ছা middle aspect. Sir,